Hey everyone, I'm pretty confident this time that I am live in the Whippet Wonders Facebook group. I'm just making sure that I've got everything where it needs to be. But today we are live and talking about reactive dogs. So these are dogs who bark, lunge or snap or any of the above at other dogs or people or similar. We're not talking prey drive, we're not talking a dog who just wants to play, we are talking reactivity. So if you have a reactive dog, do feel free to pop a comment in the comments. I'm keeping my eye on the comments. On my laptop they should appear, even if they don't on my phone. Technology, hey. So we're talking about reactivity today. If you have a reactive dog, pop it in the comments, the age of your dog maybe, and what they are reactive to. I've worked with reactivity for the last 14 years, especially with whippets. I've had my own whippets with reactivity, and I understand the kind of behaviours they perform and how frustrating they can be when it comes to reactivity. They are fast moving, fast thinking, but not always thinking in the way we want them to. So we're going to cover the 3 mistakes that you may be making with your reactivity training, as well as some questions that some of you guys posted earlier in the group, in the week in the group. So I'm going to start with talking point number 1 on why we might, what mistakes we might still be making with our reactive whippets. So, you know, in theory, we're doing all the right kind of stuff. You know, we're going out, we're creating positive associations, and there's a lot of information in the guides on how we want to do that. But we might still be seeing struggles. And one of the mistakes we might be making is that we're still continuing to take our dog on experiences that they don't enjoy around their triggers. So are we still taking our reactive dog on social walks or pack walks or doggy daycare and things like that? And this is one of those things that can ruffle feathers, so to speak. You won't hear my bird, he's really quiet right now. But these sort of things can be having quite an impact on our reactive dogs, because if we have a reactive dog who is reactive because they're a bit nervous or they are a bit anxious, but we're still taking them on these like pack walks, neutrality walks, whatever they call them, wherever you are, where we have maybe 20 or so dogs plus marching alongside each other. Is that reactive anxious dog really enjoying that walk with 20, 30 dogs? Or are they a little bit shut down and anxious that they have no choice in the matter? If their behaviour is drastically different on that walk compared to real life, I would argue they're probably not enjoying that walk very much. If we're putting our reactive dogs in situations they're not equipped to handle currently, it kind of undoes the training you're doing outside of that situation. So if they're still going to, you know, I was always really surprised when I was working a lot in person, see clients really regularly working on their reactivity, and they'd randomly one day say, oh yeah, well, my dog's still going to daycare, and when he's there, he's barking all day at the other dogs, and he's barking with other dogs at the front door, and he's barking at people coming in. And I'd be like, oh, that doesn't sound like it's helping your training. That sounds like it's the opposite. He's going to this place where he's feeling really insecure, and he's barking and he's lunging, and also he's in a group of other dogs that are barking and lunging. That's probably undoing all of the time and effort you're putting in to training him outside of these sessions. Because it doesn't happen, behaviour change doesn't happen in that vacuum of your walk. If your dog is going to daycare or pack walks or insert what you like there, and they're performing the behaviour there, that's probably not helping your training. And that happens way more than you think. It's unbelievable, and I understand it can be very difficult because you may have a dog with separation anxiety, they may need somewhere to go, but for a lot of these reactive dogs, maybe they need somewhere quieter, maybe they need something more personal. But it is a mistake that we can be making, is we're doing all the right stuff on a walk, but then they're still going to these outings, and these outings are actually almost undermining the training that you're doing. Hang on, I'm trying to read comments as I go as well. I can't multitask these days, it's very difficult. But yeah, and that's one of the biggest mistakes I see being made. I'm going to read that properly in a bit. I think I can't multitask at the minute. I'm sorry. I used to be able to multitask better. I'm blaming all the steroids I'm on for all my medical woes. Feel free to post comments and questions. I promise I'll come back to them properly when I come to sort of Q&A as we're going along. But yeah, so think about whether your dog is really enjoying that group walk, whether they're really enjoying that daycare setting, or whether it's perhaps undermining the work you're doing with your reactive dog. You know, if they're going to like a personal small daycare where there's maybe only one other dog and the owner's very, you know, switched on, of which I know there are plenty of those kind of daycares. I know there are here in Lincoln, then that's fine. But if they're going to like a big place and they're all just a big group of dogs left to it, barking and lunging, it's probably undermining your training a little bit. So we need to think about, are we taking our dogs on experiences they either don't enjoy because they're anxious, or even if they're overexcited, are they not equipped to handle it? Are they just getting overexcited all day around dogs several days a week? Yeah, so point number 2 is a really common mistake I often see made, and that's we are only practicing our skills when there is a trigger present. So a trigger could be another dog, it could be people, it could be anything like that. And what often happens is people have some skills, but they only practice when that trigger is present. And what our dogs tend to learn is that we only try and engage with them when a trigger is around. And what happens is that they don't have the skill that we're asking for them, really fluent, because we've not practiced it without that high stress, high excitement, depending on your dog, trigger. So it could be we want to play find it, or we just want to do a bit of engagement, some eye contact, them checking in. But if we're only doing that around triggers, our attention on our dog on walks becomes associated with triggers. So us paying attention to our dog on walks can actually start to become something to stress our dogs out, because we only do it in the presence of the trigger and at no other time, or very sparsely. So very often what happens is the dog sees us grabbing some treats and trying to get their attention and trying to train with them, and they go, why? Where is the dog? Where is the person? Where is the thing that gets my emotions up? Because you only do this, historically, when there are triggers around. So the solution for that is we just make sure we do that randomly on our walks. We engage with them, we ask them to do any of the training skills we might be working on, which could be, you know, let's go, find it, touch, eye contact, ready, steady, go. There's a lot of skills we can be engaging them with, but we need to do them randomly on a walk. You know, and I'll be the first to say I probably don't always do this as often as I could. I am making a very conscious effort right now to do let's go, which is our emergency U-turn, when there's like nothing around. Because otherwise, he knows I only do let's go when there's a big trigger that's probably running into his space. Or there's a dog on a flexi running across the road at us, which happens far more than we'd like to happen. So, you know, one of those problems is we're only engaging with our dogs on walks when there are triggers. So what we need to be doing is doing it regularly. You know, maybe pick one skill for each walk, do it 4 or 5 times a walk when there's nothing around, so that your dog doesn't just learn that that only happens in the presence of a trigger. Joyce says, I find the touch game very useful. We play this on a walk, not only when a trigger is present, and it now works better when a trigger is present. Absolutely, and that's definitely the way to do it. Is we love the touch game as well here. It's Arkle's absolute favourite. For those that don't know, it's your dog booping your hand with their nose. Whippets love it. They love using those big long snoots, don't they? Usually not helpfully, but in this case helpfully. We teach them to do that. We do that loads away from that situation, and it's going to help us in that situation with those triggers. So that's number 2. The third thing is that we often, God, it's been a long day and it's only 1 o'clock. It's because I went out in the rain. I'm blaming that as well now. The third mistake we might be making is that we are not giving our whippets enough whippet related outlets. So we sometimes look at reactivity and sort of the baseline sort of information around it, and all of that kind of thing. But sometimes it's very difficult when we have reactive dogs, because they're dogs who may need some sort of restriction in their life. You know, they may not be able to go fully off the lead, they may not be able to be in the situations they were before they were reactive, and this can inhibit their ability to do whippet related things like run off the lead, be free in some capacity. We want them to have the outlet to be a dog, be a whippet, because that tends to reduce those behaviour problems, and it can reduce frustration, and it decompresses them and lowers their stress, having access to behaviours that they are bred to enjoy. And the things they are bred to enjoy are running, chasing. I actually think they're really good at and enjoy scent work quite a lot. If anyone's had a prey-driven whippet that likes scent tracking, you'll know what I mean. You know, when that nose goes down and they're following that scent. I think they're a lot better at that, some of them, not all, than anyone thinks. And I think it is a need. And in fact, a lot of the whippets I work with, there's often a problem of them sniffing heavily, and that's part of why they're scavenging, is they're so close to those sniffs. So we want to give them those whippet outlets. We can rent a paddock for our whippets who like to run and zoom if they're not able to go off lead in public. We can give them a long line. We can play games with them, like with Tuggy. Tuggy is a good game to play. It's not a game that we should see demonized or anything. It's not going to make them aggressive. It's not going to make them stubborn. They have that need to play and chase, so we can use Tuggy for that. And in fact, it's great for teaching them to listen when they're excited. Those who do my reactivity course know we do a lot of work on getting them a bit excited and calming them down and getting them excited again so they can learn to control those emotions. We can give them Tuggy games, the flirt pole, big stick, rope, fluffy toy. We can use that as well. And the scent games, I'll pop some links in the comments later. We can hide some treats for them to find and enjoy. But when we're dealing with the sighthounds, they do have this sort of desire for freedom and desire for movement and desire for chase and engaging with us in ways that they enjoy. They're never going to do anything they don't enjoy. They're going to say, what's in it for me? So we're often making that mistake of not giving them enough whippet related outlets. And I totally get this one. We're in a sticky situation with Arkle where I can't walk as far currently due to medical issues and I can't drive. So we are having to be very creative in finding ways to let him off the lead and find places he is okay to be, because the places we used to go were a little further away. So they're my three main things, is that we might be taking our dogs on experiences they don't enjoy anymore. We might be only working on skills around triggers. We might not be giving them enough whippet related outlets. I have some questions from earlier. I'll come to the comments now, and then I'll come to those questions. If you have any questions while you're watching, feel free to pop them in the comments. I'm going to read through some of these comments now. This is where the light comes in and burns my eyes. It's always something with me. Tara says, I like that emergency U-turn, let's go. That would be very easy to practice without a trigger around. Yeah, we do lots of sudden U-turns, marking and rewarding. We do it a lot. We look a bit crazy. Like, you should look a little bit odd if you're training your dog right on your walks, is what I always say. It's not always like what people want to hear, but if we're doing it right, we should look like we're being a bit unusual. Kai says, we use a touch game too. She enjoys it. Love whippet outlet games. Brilliant. Thank you. Joyce says, I have to hire secure fields for mine to run. They both have really high prey drive. We do practice impulse control using a flirt pole. They love it. Their favourite game. Yeah. It's great they get that opportunity to run in a secure field. It definitely makes a big difference to a lot of dogs I work with. It can sound really counterproductive to say, give your dog more freedom, but we can do it in like a controlled way for sure. They both have really high prey drive. Yeah, I bet that's fun with the two of them as well. I think I saw you doing some good stuff with ducks recently, didn't you? Or maybe I imagined it. He says, Whippet age 3 used to be dog friendly, but now after having a number of dogs have a go at him, he is dog reactive, only when on the lead. Okay, some dogs okay, some dogs not, so it's hard to know when he will be reactive. He will round go around me in a circle and then lunge, and has on occasion knocked me to the floor. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. He is not neutered as our other nervous whippet is not neutered. Have attended face-to-face training to distract, walk other ways, but recently seems worse than ever. Absolutely fine if he's off lead. Yeah, and a lot of, it's really common for dogs to be much better when they're off the lead. I wouldn't say to people, hey, go out and test that theory, like without any skills and support with random dogs, but most, especially I find whippets, most reactive whippets are better off the lead. A lot of dogs are more reactive on the lead because of that frustration and that fear. They can't communicate because they're restricted to a lead. So it is really common. You know, there is like the odd dog who is worse with freedom and off the lead. I think I've worked with one in the past 14 years of hundreds of dogs, but he's definitely not like the general rule on that at all. So that's definitely really normal. I'm going to come to your question about lunging around in a minute. Nina says, I find Sully loves mousing and digging in the grass on a long line. Yeah, that's a really good one. He jumps like an Arctic fox in the clumps. It's an easy way to add breeds. Yeah, that's a really good one. Where we can find places like that. Arkle loves mice in grass, and Arthur used to as well. And Jennifer says, when our dog is in the reactive zone towards another dog, nothing stops him, no how valued treat or favourite toy works at all. Yeah, and that's definitely really common. The problem is that when they get into that zone, they're not really in a state of learning. They're in fight or flight, and that's why they're sort of barking and lunging. They're in a state of either panic or extreme frustration, sometimes both. Whippets tend to be emotionally complex, I find. Very often what we have to do is work them from that safe distance, and I'll pop some videos and links in the comment. And we need to build those skills like that let's go well away from that stressful situation and that touch game and things like that, so that we can use them in that situation. Because at the minute, unfortunately, what often happens is they are reactive, they bark and lunge, and that is just a sign that they can't cope in that situation and they're really just too overwhelmed, and we need to sort of go back almost literally physically to a distance they can handle. But I'll pop some stuff in the comments. Manny loves mousing too. He will be walking around, and then in a split second he's pounced. I love that. I think things like that are really good for them, as long as they're not obsessing, but even then they go bounce around and enjoy themselves. It's a really good one. What I would say is we have a mouse toy for Arkle. This is one of those things where I'm like, be cautious with your own dogs, but it's like one of these ones that meeps. It's for cats. Loves it. If I hide that around the house, he is absolutely the happiest dog in the world if he finds it. I couldn't use it with one of my previous whippets because he was a bit convinced it was real, and would try crunching it, and I'd be like, no, don't eat that, there's a battery in it, Ollie, this isn't the game for you. Equally, I could have probably played it without the noise in it, taken the squeakery thing out. Arkle loves it. Be aware with your own dogs, but he loves stuff like that. So, a few of the questions some of you had, and feel free to keep them coming. I'm going to go through them. So I think it was names. I'm rubbish at names at the best of times. It was Lisa. My screen is just filled with comments now. Lisa said, how do you stop your dog pulling around behind you? So he's spinning around behind you when he reacts. It's what I think I'm getting from that. So I guess he might be on, let's say, your left, and then he's coming around behind you and almost spinning either back. This is my right. I've confused matters more. He's coming back around and spinning in the same direction, or he's coming around behind you and lunging in that direction. Yeah, it's a really tricky one. When I had the four of them, I had the three whippets and a terrier, and I had to walk them together. I got into a system of making sure I had the leads in all the right places to make sure they couldn't do that, because I didn't want to be like knocked over by them. I think one thing that I like to do to try and restrict that a little bit is I try and have my lead in the opposite hand to the side my dog is on, because if my lead is on, you can see why I can't do agility. If my lead is on my left, yeah, this is my left, even if it's reflected weird. The lead is on my left and my dog is on my right, and my dog tries to spin around behind me, he's not going to have enough lead to like loop around the full way. He might get a bit of the way, but then he's going to sort of stop. And equally, if he's there and he goes to try and go the other way, it gives me a chance to like try and grab that lead to stop him doing that. I think you also said you have 2 dogs maybe, so I'm not sure if they're both doing it. But I like the lead in the opposite hand. It gives me a bit more of an anchorage. I'm trying to see comments as well. It keeps telling me I've got a slow connection. I don't know if it's coming through glitchy. I can only apologise if it is. I would also maybe consider using a front clip maybe on the harness, so that they can't really spin around the full way. Always be aware to have like a backup onto another clip in my experience. Yeah, I do tend to have him on a short lead, but he lunges and he's so strong that he pulls me over. I definitely might look at a front clip if you're not already using one. It's one of these things where people say whippets aren't strong, but they definitely can be really strong. It's the way they lunge and it's the way they move that is often so frustrating, is they often put a lot of power from their back legs into their front end. So it might be worth either having a front clip or a lead splitter from front to back on a normal lead, just so you have that little bit of leverage. Or just, you know, if as soon as you feel any tension, even though I'd rather we didn't add tension in stressful situations, maybe in that, he's on a martingale and a harness. Yeah. If you've not tried the front clip, it could be worth looking at that, just because it's at the front of the body. And if he goes to lunge, it's just going to steer him off balance, so he can't quite do that. It is a tricky one, because once they've sort of started to do it, they're going to find it, it's difficult to get them out of that habit loop. Yeah, I think I would try the front clip, and I would try having the lead in the hand opposite to the side he's on. With the front clip, I might try, make sure you've got, because you're already using a double. Yeah, I think from what you're saying, you're already using a double, so I would just go maybe front clip to back clip or front clip to collar. I always like a backup with the front clip. I'm risk averse. That's what I tell everyone. I'm risk averse. Yeah, I'm going to come to your question in a moment, Susan. I'm going to finish these 2 and then I'll come to the ones in the comments. So keep them coming. I am coming to them. Another question was what to do if I meet another dog who's barking and lunging and sets off your dog, which is always like the worst nightmare. So this is a very difficult situation, because there's already another dog that is triggering your dog, which means your dog is very highly likely going to react like a non-reactive dog is likely to react to a dog that is already reacting to them. So that if you have, lost my train of thought completely there. It's because I'm trying to read and think at the same time. Yeah, so if you have like a reactive dog who's being reacted to, they're more likely to react in that situation a lot of the time, but not always. And I think that's where we need to just decide what the best solution is in that scenario. Are we going to try and train, or are we just going to try and manage the situation? So not every situation is for training. Like there's this whole thing with loads of trainers that every single situation you should have like this perfect outcome in mind, and your dog should be able to respond instantly in every situation. I mean, I can't even respond properly during this setup Zoom. It's not even a Zoom, it's a Facebook Live. So I think having that expectation on dogs to be able to respond perfectly when another dog is threatening them, it is quite a big expectation. I think in that situation, we can either try and train and try and use our let's go, or some similar cue, ready, steady, go, something high energy to match that arousal. Or we just have to go, this is a losing situation, I'm going to just take you off to the side and hold on until that other dog passes. I don't believe every situation is a situation to train my dog. If another dog is barking at me and Arkle and we're on the opposite side of the pavement, I will just keep trying to walk if he's barking and lunging. And we have to keep going at that distance. I'm going to keep trying to walk, and I'll be usually taking a breath, because usually the other person's doing nothing. They knew their dog was going to bark and they did absolutely nothing. You can see the joy that it brings me. And we just try and get through that situation. I might just have conditioned them to being their harness held or having a shorter lead, because having a shorter lead is going to trigger a bigger reaction most of the time. So I do spend a lot of time conditioning that. One thing I do out of that situation, which I think is actually really helpful, is I do condition my dogs to the sound of barking dogs quite a lot. So we do a lot of playing sounds of YouTube dogs barking while they're having like snuffle mats at a very, very low level. If you do it too high, you're going to probably get the opposite effect where they're just getting stressed listening to dogs in their house. You want to start nice and low and gradually increase that volume over hundreds and hundreds of sessions. Hundreds is maybe an exaggeration. 20 or so, I don't know. We're going to do it over quite a few sessions. And what we want to do is get them used to the idea barking dogs aren't anything to worry about. I've done this quite a lot with Arkle over the last 4 months. My dog, Arkle, is reactive because he has been attacked and he's had medical issues, all of these things. But very recently he started looking at me when he sees barking dogs because he's like, this means food, right? I'm like, absolutely, absolutely it means food. And he gets his chicken nuggets, which we use very high value treats. Use your own high value treats. His ears have just gone up in his sleep because he knows those words. Yeah, I think animal. Yes, especially where mine has been attacked badly before. Yeah, I think just getting safe to a safe space as quickly as possible. Yeah, I think that's it. I think trying to train them. I'm not of the opinion like if a dog's running at mine or a dog is too close and barking or lunging, I'm not of the opinion I should train my dog in that situation because my dog's going to trust me less next time. If I'm like, come on, let's do a touch as this dog's trying to bark and lunge at you, he might do it that time in like shock, but I feel like trying to train is putting a different level of trust. I've not explained that probably very well, but I don't want him to learn that I ask him to do stuff when he's really stressed out, like and there's a dog barking and lunging at him and he's very anxious and he's very stressed. So yeah, I think but I think conditioning barking dogs and food is one of the best things I've been doing recently, because there are always barking dogs everywhere. It's actually not usually mine. He's a silent lunger, which is not as good. The third question was handling darker months, and then I'm going to come to some of those comments. They're looking very good. Yeah, handling darker months. So some of you are in the UK, those of us in the UK, it's definitely going to get darker, but it is getting darker in the evenings. And for some of our reactive dogs, this can make things worse because they might be, for lack of a better phrase, scared of the dark. Essentially, it's very difficult in the dark because sound is often amplified. They can't quite see, which puts them on edge. Arkle historically has hated the dark. I've tried to walk him in evenings. Like my previous dogs used to love walking in the evening, and we'd have lovely walks. And every autumn I've given it a go, and he's like, this is terrifying. And he reacts to things that he wouldn't usually. He'll like see a shadow and think it's a dog. It's always been a bit dreadful. Interestingly, I took him out at some point in the dark this week. He was pretty amazing. I was actually really surprised. He was checking in loads. I put that down to just a lot of the work we've managed to put in the last 6 months of confidence building and stuff like that. But I think overall it's a tricky one because for me, I just haven't walked Arkle in the dark up until this week, and I tried it again. If my dog doesn't like walking in darker nights, I might just opt to give them some enrichment instead. It could be that I just start to take them out. So if I really wanted to get them used to it, and it was one of those things, I might start to take them out as it's before it's dark, but I know it's going to get darker on the walk, and start to get them used to the idea it gets darker and they're walking home in the dark and they're building their confidence with that 5 minutes at the end of the walk where it's dark, and we can sort of increase that potentially. But I think overall it would be general confidence boosting. I do sometimes wonder if some dogs might be better with reducing some of the it depends on your dog, I guess, some of the stimulation. Like, I've been thinking about using a snood in the dark for Arkle that covers his ears because he can be more sound sensitive in the dark. And I wonder if I muffled the sound a little, that might help for him. Though, like I say, he was fine the other day. It was a And it was brilliant because there was actually dogs across the road, and his threshold is just slightly over across the road. They were across the road, you couldn't see them, which just meant we had a really nice peaceful walk because he had no idea those dogs were there, which for us was great because I knew those dogs weren't coming closer. That's probably not a helpful answer, but sometimes it is tricky to balance. You know, I never took Marley out in the dark. He was a very anxious dog. He never went out in the dark. He hated it. He was on edge. He was shut down. He was not a happy chappy. So in winter, he just had less exercise. He had more enrichment. And I made sure on days where he had exercise or the conditions were right, he had an increased exercise to balance for the fact that maybe he didn't have a walk for 2 days or so. I don't know if that's helpful, but that is the answer I'm going to go with. So I'm going to come through. We've got quite a few comments. I can't think, talk and read. It's really bad. I used to be able to multitask so much better, and now I've gone too far back and I'm just scrolling away. I keep trying to find your comment, Susan, but it keeps disappearing. Why is it doing that? Susan said, can it help to walk dogs separately? I have 2 Whippets, the youngest is the reactive one, and I wonder if he feels better with his brother there, or is it helpful to increase confidence by walking the reactive one alone at times? I do need to walk them, however. So if we have a reactive dog in a multi-dog household, I would definitely try and do some walks separately if you can. It's one of those things that is difficult. I had multiple reactive dogs at one time. I made, most of mine were rescues, and I made poor decisions and I kept getting reactive dogs. So we did a lot of separate walks. Very often what happens is dogs are often much better solo because 1, we can focus 100% on them, and 2, they do pick up on each other's behaviours. It's not a pack thing or anything like that. I don't subscribe to that kind of thing. It's more of a, oh, that other dog, I've got another dog with me, that's my arousal levels raised already. Oh, now I've seen a trigger. Or the other dog in the household might be getting excited about the trigger. Maybe they've only just noticed it, but it adds an extra stack of that trigger to the situation. So very often what happens is that we end up with a dog who's more trigger stacked when they are walked with the other dogs. Definitely sometimes they have to be walked together. If I'm walking multi-dogs together and one is reactive, I might just tie one around my waist using a halty double-ended lead, and if that one's not reactive, they can do what they like, and then I've got my hands free with my lead and my treats to deal with the reactive one, which is definitely my preference. Very often when we bring them back together, we might need to reduce those triggers and reintroduce them a bit. But I went from having Marley, who was reactive, Womble, my rescue elderly terrier, who was reactive, Arthur, who had some issues because he wasn't well, and then Ollie, who thought, well, if everyone else is shouting, I might as well get involved. So I went from having the 4 of them having separate walks. I don't think it was long that I worked on it. When I worked on it specifically, within around 6 months, they were all walking together, able to see dogs across the road. That was all I needed. That's all I needed in life from them. There was another question. What length of long line do you recommend? It's a personal preference thing, as you will probably see in the comments. 10 meters is my preference if I want to be able to let them have a good run, and my goal is maybe recall. But 10 meters can be too much for people to handle. I always say if you get 10 meters and you don't like it, you can cut it down to 5 meters. Whereas if you get 5 meters and find you need more, you're going to have to buy a whole new long line. I think sometimes though I say 10 meters, and you have to remember I put a lot of knots in my long line. I've probably lost a meter or 2 with the huge amount of knotting I do so that my hand doesn't slide through them. So probably not fully 10 meters. And I like my gripper long lines. I was using a biothane for the last month, which was great until the grass is wet. I can't hold that. Can't hold that when my dog runs. That's, again, personal preference though. A lot of people prefer biothane. I can't, when it's slippery, hold that. I will just lose it. So, I think that's all the questions answered, but does anyone have any more questions? Have I missed anyone? I'll start wrapping up in case. But otherwise, yes, so gone on so many tangents, it's unbelievable. Not as bad as normal for me, but still quite a few tangents. So the 3 mistakes you might be making with your reactive dog are, you might be taking them on experiences they're not really enjoying, and that might be undermining your training. We might be only doing those skills around triggers, which means we need to go back to doing them not around triggers as well. We might not be giving them enough Whippet-related outlets. So if you're having problems with your reactive dog, there is lots of information in the guides. There's lots of free information floating everywhere, because I just want you to have information. So you've got blogs, you've got YouTube, you've got guides. I will drop it in the comments or a new post or something, so you can find that. I do also do tailored like one-to-ones as well, and reactivity packages and the online courses, so that you can get more specific support. Everything I say here is general and generalized, may not be specific to you and your dogs, and that is why I offer the one-to-ones too, via Zoom or online courses and all of that kind of thing, because what's going on with one dog might not be what is exactly going on with another. But I am going to go and release my bird from his cover. There's a literal budgie over here somewhere. He's not shouted. Usually he does, even when he's under a cover. But he will want to be released, and he will want to probably be physically released. Look, you can see my new bird station. I've become one of those people with just I'm going to get loads more animals, I think. There's this little bird station. No one cares about the budgie. So I'm going to go, let you enjoy the rest of your weekend. If anyone is watching this later, you can still ask questions and I'll still pop in and answer them just with comments, not with speaking. Thank you for joining. If you've got ideas for a topic, I can do these more regularly. Then let me know, pop something in the comments, pop a new post up. Whatever works. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your Sunday and thank you for joining. Bye.